Step into the world of silent shadows, where intrigue and suspense collide in tales that will keep you guessing until the very end. Here, the smallest details hold the biggest answers, and every shadow tells a story waiting to be discovered. Take a deep breath, open your mind, and join us as we unravel the mysteries that lie just beyond the light. Death on the Tracks, a mystery story by Grave Pit Shadows. The night train cut through the countryside like a steel predator, its rhythmic clatter swallowed by the fog rolling in from the marshes. For Henry Dobbins, the seasoned conductor, the journey was as ordinary as it had been for decades. Yet tonight, the dark pressed closer, the familiar rails whispering unease. At precisely 10:15 p.m., the train lurched to a stop. Lights flickered in the passenger cars, and confused murmurs filled the air. In the foggy stillness outside, the crew disembarked to investigate. What they found froze their blood. Sprawled on the tracks, illuminated by their flickering flashlights, lay Henry's mangled body. His face, twisted in terror, seemed to scream even in death. His limbs were splayed unnaturally, and the steel rails glistened with fresh blood. The veteran conductor who had guided countless trains was now reduced to a broken, lifeless husk. Above the scene, the train engine hissed like a living creature, its whistle cutting a mournful note through the suffocating night. Detective Courtney Costello stepped out of her car, the early morning chill biting at her face. She stared at the twisted body on the tracks, the coppery scent of blood mingling with the damp fog. Her partner, Dominic Sims, trailed behind her, his flashlight slicing through the gloom. Henry Dobbins, Dominic read from his notebook. 61 years old, beloved by everyone in town. No family, no enemies, at least none we know of. Courtney crouched near the body, her sharp eyes scanning the scene. The scuff marks leading to the edge of the tracks caught her attention. She traced them with a gloved hand, her stomach tightening. "This wasn't an accident," she said, her voice low. "Look at these marks." He struggled. Dominic glanced at the corpse, his stomach churning. Struggled with who? Courtney's eyes moved to the dense fog surrounding them. "That's what we need to find out." The train crew huddled a short distance away, their faces pale and hollow. One of them, Paul Grayson, couldn't stop shaking. His eyes darted around the fog as though expecting something or someone to emerge. "Paul, take a breath," Courtney said, her tone calm but firm. "I need you to walk us through what happened." Paul swallowed hard. He was in the cabin with us. Everything was normal. Then he said he needed to check something about the logs. He left, and the next thing..." His voice faltered, and he glanced toward the body. "The next thing, the train stopped, and he was there." "Did he say anything strange before he left?" Dominic asked. Paul's eyes darted to the tracks. "Not really. But now that I think about it, he seemed scared. He kept looking over his shoulder, like he was being watched." Courtney exchanged a glance with Dominic. "Watched by who?" Paul shook his head, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I don't know, but I swear when I went to check the cabin after we found him, the air felt wrong, cold, like something was still there." At the train depot, the detectives met Olivia Crane, Henry's assistant. Her petite frame seemed smaller than usual as she clutched a steaming mug, her trembling hands betraying her fear. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered erratically, casting long, shifting shadows across the office walls. "Henry was like a father to me," Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He didn't deserve this." Courtney leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "When was the last time you saw him?" "Right before the train left the station," Olivia replied, "but he seemed distracted." Dominic frowned. "Distracted how?" Olivia hesitated, biting her lip. "He was pacing, muttering under his breath. I asked him what was wrong and he just shook his head. But his eyes, I've never seen him look like that before. Courtney's voice softened, but her words were sharp. Did he ever mention feeling threatened? Did he have enemies? Olivia's pale face grew paler. No, but... She trailed off, her eyes flitting to the darkened windows behind them. But what? Courtney pressed. Olivia shivered. A few weeks ago, he told me he'd been hearing footsteps on the tracks during his late-night shifts. He thought it was a prank, kids messing around. But then he started hearing them even when the train was moving. Dominic raised an eyebrow. Footsteps on a moving train? Olivia nodded, her voice trembling. He said it didn't make sense. The footsteps always stopped right behind him. The detectives tracked down Caleb Monroe, a maintenance worker at the rail yard. Caleb was in his 50s, with grease-stained hands and a perpetual scowl. He greeted them with a blunt warning. You two shouldn't be here after dark, Caleb muttered, lighting a cigarette. Courtney arched an eyebrow. Why not? Caleb exhaled smoke, his eyes narrowing. Because the tracks aren't safe. And I don't mean because of trains. Dominic smirked. You're saying the tracks are haunted? Caleb's scowl deepened. I'm saying people hear things, see things. Henry heard them too. He thought someone was messing with the schedules, sabotaging shipments. But I told him, whatever's out there, it ain't human. Courtney crossed her arms. What exactly did you see, Caleb? Caleb hesitated, his rough exterior cracking. A figure, tall, shadowy. I saw it standing on the tracks one night, right where Henry's body was found. But when I got closer, it was gone, just vanished. Back at the station, Courtney and Dominic reviewed Henry's belongings. Among them was a worn leather ledger. Its pages were filled with detailed notes about cargo discrepancies and altered schedules. Several entries were circled in red, with a chilling note scrawled beneath them. Someone's following me. Can't shake the feeling I'm being watched. We'll confront tomorrow. Courtney closed the ledger, her face grim. He knew. Whoever, or whatever did this, Henry knew he was close to the truth. Dominic leaned back, a chill running down his spine. But why kill him? What were they hiding? The forensics team uncovered traces of oil on Henry's shoes. Oil used exclusively on coupling mechanisms. This led Courtney and Dominic back to the tracks, where they discovered fresh boot prints leading away from the scene. The prints abruptly ended, as if the person who made them had vanished into thin air. Dominic's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows along the rails. I hate this, he muttered. It feels like we're not alone out here. Courtney ignored him, focusing on the prints. Whoever killed Henry didn't just want him dead. They wanted to send a message. A sudden rustling in the fog made them both freeze. Dominic spun around, his heart racing. Did you hear that? Courtney's voice was calm but firm. Stay close. The boot prints matched Caleb Monroe's boots. When confronted, Caleb broke down, his bravado crumbling. Henry was going to ruin everything, Caleb admitted. He was going to expose us. I couldn't let him, but I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted to scare him. Courtney's voice was cold. Scare him or silence him? Before Caleb could respond, the station lights flickered violently. A low, guttural sound echoed through the depot, sending shivers down their spines. What the hell was that? Dominic whispered. Caleb's face twisted in terror. It's here, it knows what I did. The lights went out, plunging the station into darkness. Caleb was arrested, and Olivia was charged for her role in the cargo fraud. But the whispers about the tracks didn't stop. Engineers reported seeing shadowy figures, hearing footsteps that seemed to follow them. As Courtney and Dominic stood at the station, watching the night train roll into the fog, Dominic shook his head. Do you think it's over? Courtney stared into the darkness, her voice barely a whisper. No. Some things don't end. Not out here. The whistle howled, a mournful cry that echoed into the night, as though the tracks themselves mourned Henry's fate. The story may have ended, but the shadows linger on. Thank you for watching Silent Shadows. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments. We're always eager to hear what you uncover. Stay tuned for more chilling tales. And as always, be careful of the secrets lurking in the dark. Step into the world of silent shadows, where intrigue and suspense collide in tales that will keep you guessing until the very end. Here, the smallest details hold the biggest answers, and every shadow tells a story waiting to be discovered. Take a deep breath, open your mind, and join us as we unravel the mysteries that lie just beyond the light. The Vanishing Widow, a mystery story. By Grave Pit Shadows, the fog that blanketed Ravensport was heavier than usual, clinging to the cliffs like a ghostly veil. Widow's Watch, the looming mansion perched high above the jagged rocks, was barely visible against the morning gray. Locals said the place was cursed, a house of secrets and sorrow, where the past whispered through the halls and the sea's relentless waves kept its truths hidden. When Sarah Whitaker, the town's wealthiest and most controversial widow, vanished, the mansion became the focal point of scandal once more. The front doors had been locked from the inside, the windows untouched. A pair of muddy boots, crusted with red clay, sat neatly by the entrance, boots that did not belong to her. How does a woman vanish from a locked house? Detective Courtney Costello stepped out of her car at the base of the winding driveway, her breath clouding in the crisp air. Widow's Watch loomed ahead like a sentinel over the cliffs, its once grand facade crumbling under the weight of neglect. The towering windows reflected the sea's churning waves, fractured and distorted, like a house reluctant to reveal its secrets. Her partner, Dominic Sims, joined her, his notepad already in hand, younger and more eager. Dominic's natural energy often grated against Courtney's measured approach, but his curiosity was a useful tool in their investigations. "What do we know so far?" Courtney asked, scanning the thick mist that curled through the ancient trees lining the drive. "The neighbor called it in after Sarah didn't show for a charity breakfast," Dominic replied. "No signs of forced entry, doors locked, windows sealed. Just the boots by the door. Lab says the mud's from the cliffs near the tide pools." Courtney's gaze sharpened. "Anything else?" "The study was ransacked. Looks like she was searching for something, or someone else was." Courtney's lips pressed into a thin line as she started toward the house. Widow's Watch seemed to breathe as they approached, the wind whistling through cracks in the walls, carrying with it the scent of salt and decay. "Places like this," Dominic muttered, shivering. "They hold on to things." "Let's hope they give them up," Courtney replied grimly. The interior of Widow's Watch was a snapshot of faded grandeur. Dust shrouded the ornate furniture, cobwebs stretched across gilded chandeliers, and the wallpaper peeled in strips like dead skin. The air was damp, heavy with the briny scent of the sea and a faint metallic tang that set Courtney on edge. Just inside the threshold, the muddy boots sat neatly by the door. Large, scuffed, and obviously worn by a man, they were out of place in Sarah Whitaker's refined world. Courtney knelt to examine them. "The mud's fresh. Whoever wore these was here within the last 24 hours. Dominic's flashlight swept across the floor, illuminating faint smudges of red clay leading deeper into the house. And they didn't wipe their feet. The trail led to the study, where the ransacked scene told a story of chaos. Papers spilled from the desk drawers, books had been pulled from the shelves, and a half-burned letter sat in the fireplace, the edges blackened but the center legible. Courtney carefully retrieved the charred scrap with tweezers. The handwriting was Sarah's, neat, looping, and precise. "Alan, I found the papers. The lighthouse deal was a sham. We need to talk about what this means for the others involved. If this gets out, it will ruin us both." Courtney frowned, her mind racing. "Alan Mercer, the family doctor." Dominic flipped through his notes. He was her confidant, probably the only person she trusted after her husband died. Courtney set the letter aside and turned her attention to the bookshelf. Something about its placement seemed deliberate. After a moment's inspection, she found a latch hidden behind a row of books. The shelf creaked open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Dominic's jaw dropped. A hidden passage? Why am I not surprised? Stay close, Courtney said, descending into the gloom. The staircase led to a narrow stone tunnel carved into the cliff itself. The walls were slick with moisture, and the air reeked of salt and decay. Courtney's flashlight illuminated the path ahead, revealing scattered debris. An old lantern, a rusted chain, and more red clay smeared along the ground. At the tunnel's end, an iron door opened onto the cliffs. Outside, the wind howled, whipping spray from the crashing waves far below. In the grass near the edge, Courtney spotted something glinting in the sunlight. Sarah's necklace, she murmured, holding up the delicate gold chain. It was tangled and smeared with blood. Nearby, faint footprints led toward the cliff's edge, where the grass was flattened as though someone had fallen or been pushed. At the precinct, Caleb Whitaker's defiance was palpable. The 28-year-old had spent years clashing with Sarah over his late father's estate, and his anger was thinly veiled. She hated me, Caleb spat. She cut me out of everything my father built. Why would I kill her? I get nothing if she's dead. Courtney's gaze was sharp. You think she changed her will? She might have, Caleb admitted. But I wouldn't know, would I? She kept everything locked up in that house. Where were you last night? Dominic asked. Home, alone. Caleb's tone was clipped. Go ahead, say it's convenient. Irene Cole's modest cottage was a stark contrast to Widow's Watch. The former housekeeper greeted them with a scowl, clutching a rosary. I didn't kill her, Irene snapped before they could ask. I may have hated her, but I'm not a murderer. You told her she'd regret firing you, Courtney said. What did you mean? Irene hesitated. I meant she'd regret accusing me of theft. I didn't take her damn jewelry. She wanted an excuse to get rid of me. Where were you last night? Dominic asked. At home. My daughter can vouch for me. Alan Mercer's calm demeanor during questioning set Courtney on edge. He was polished, composed, but too smooth. Sarah trusted me, Alan said. She was under a lot of stress. She believed someone was watching her. Who? Courtney pressed. Alan hesitated. She wasn't specific, but she mentioned Caleb more than once. Courtney slid the burned letter across the table. You recognize this? Alan's composure faltered. No. Courtney's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Margaret Kane, a local historian, had been researching Widow's Watch and its shady past. When questioned, her nervous energy betrayed her. Sarah believed her husband was involved in illegal land deals, Margaret said. She thought she had proof, but she wouldn't share it with me. Where were you last night? Dominic asked. At home, working on my manuscript, Margaret replied. Lab tests confirmed the clay on the boots belonged to Margaret Kane. When confronted, she broke down. She was going to vanish, Margaret sobbed. She wanted to expose the corruption and disappear, but I couldn't let her. She would have dragged me into it. I went to Widow's Watch to stop her. We fought, and she slipped. Margaret was charged with manslaughter, and Alan Mercer's financial crimes came to light. Widow's Watch, however, remained shrouded in mystery. Fishermen claimed to hear Sarah's voice on the wind, and locals swore her shadow moved through the mansion's windows. As Courtney and Dominic stood on the cliffs, Dominic shivered. Do you think it's over? Courtney stared at the house, her voice low. Places like this never let go of their secrets. The sea roared below, carrying with it a whisper, soft, chilling, and unmistakable. The story may have ended, but the shadows linger on. Thank you for watching Silent Shadows. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments. We're always eager to hear what you uncover. Stay tuned for more chilling tales. And as always, be careful of the secrets lurking in the dark.